Chapter 1. A mystical encounter in the mountains. The late autumn forest was shrouded in a thin mist, with dry yellow leaves drifting on the breeze, making a soft rustling sound. Qinghan walked along the winding mountain path, the dry branches underfoot snapping crisply beneath his boots. The fog on the mountain looks like the weather's changing. Qinghan glanced at the darkening sky, frowning slightly as he wrapped his thin cloak tighter round himself and quickened his pace. As a seasoned hunter, he was familiar with every shift in mountain weather. Suddenly, a cold gust howled past, stirring the fallen leaves into a small vortex. Instinctively shielding his face, Qinghan sensed a faint hint of decay in the wind, a strange contrast to the usual mountain breeze. Following the wind's direction, he noticed a dark cave partially hidden by vines at the base of a cliff. It was so well camouflaged that he would never have noticed it otherwise, and his hunting instincts told him that no such cave should exist in this area. Hesitating only a moment, Qinghan decided to investigate. "I'll just take a quick look and get back before nightfall," he muttered, cautiously approaching the cave. Before entering, he scanned the surroundings for any signs of predators. The ancient vines around the entrance broke easily, crumbling to dust under his touch. He drew a fire starter from his waist, lighting a prepared torch. Flickering light revealed a deep, shadowy interior, and his figure loomed against the cave's rough-hewn walls. The marks on the walls were unmistakably man-made, even if weathered with age. He ran his hand along the cold stone, feeling traces left by those who carved it long ago. The cave was short, and after only a dozen steps, the space suddenly opened up. The torchlight illuminated a scene that made him gasp. A skeleton, elegantly posed, sat in the center of the cave, as if in serene meditation, elevated slightly on a natural stone platform. What an unusual skeleton! Leaning closer, Qinghan saw a faint greenish glow around the bones, lending the figure an eerie quality under the torchlight. The skeleton's posture was dignified, suggesting an aura of wisdom even in death. Just then, a round jade pendant slipped from the skeleton's chest. Hitting the ground with a clear sound, Qinghan reflexively reached out to catch it, feeling an unexpected warmth flow through his hand and pulse through his body. "This," he murmured, examining the pendant. It was beautifully clear, etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the torchlight. Even more astonishing, it radiated a gentle warmth, unlike the typical chill of jade. A dark red cord was looped through it, remarkably well preserved. Just as he prepared to leave, a faint silver glint caught his eye among the remains. Beneath the skeleton's tattered robes was a black book. What's this? Carefully, he picked up the black book. The moment he touched it, a bone-chilling cold surged up his arm, making him shudder. This was no ordinary cave dampness. The chill penetrated right to his bones. The book was jet black with no title, its surface smooth and glossy, reflecting an unnatural gleam. He cautiously opened it, finding pages covered in strange symbols, like some ancient script he couldn't recognize. The symbols radiated an oppressive force, as if concealing unfathomable power. What are these characters? Fixing his gaze on the page, he felt the symbols writhe, shifting and twisting as he looked, leaving him slightly dizzy. Each symbol emitted a faint glow, distorting under his gaze. Suddenly, the symbols came alive, faintly glowing in the torchlight. Qinghan's vision blurred as an indescribable force shot straight into his mind. Feeling like an icy finger pressing on his brow, a sensation both painful and surreal. "Ag," he gasped, dropping the black book with a loud smack. His torch nearly slipped from his grip. His voice echoed in the cave, startling bats to fly out in a frenzy. Disoriented, Qinghan felt something drift into his mind, like a wisp of smoke, fading just as quickly. When he came to, the strange sensation was gone, leaving only a lingering ache. He blinked, struggling to stay upright. What just happened? He rubbed his temples, his mind clouded. He tried to recall the sensation but could only remember faint glimpses of the symbols, leaving him sweating, unsure if it was from shock or the lingering effects of the strange force. Picking up the black book again, he saw that the symbols had stilled, yet they seemed to be watching him. Oddly, he could now vaguely comprehend some of the symbols' meanings, sparking both excitement and fear. Boom, thunder cracked in the distance, followed by the steady patter of rain. Heart pounding, Qinghan knew he had to leave quickly. Stowing the book in his robe, he bowed to the skeleton. "Forgive my intrusion, Senior." Leaving the cave, he felt his mind wavering between clarity and haze, with symbols flashing before his eyes. Shaking his head to stay alert, he relied on the fading light to find his way downhill. The jade pendant radiated warmth, calming his unsettled mind, while the black book remained icy cold. The contrast between them, like yin and yang, only convinced him that these items were no ordinary finds. Halfway down the mountain, a numbing cold seized him, making his limbs go numb and disrupting his energy flow. Placing his hand over the pendant, a warm current flowed through his meridians, dispelling the chill. This pendant, it's truly remarkable. Qinghan was certain that this jade pendant was no ordinary item. Quickening his pace, he pressed onward through the storm. The rain drenched him, yet he felt no cold. The black book's chill and the pendant's warmth balanced within him, heightening his awareness of his surroundings. Night had fallen by the time he reached his modest cabin outside the village. He lit the fire in his hearth, carefully wiping down the pendant. Under the firelight, its intricate patterns became clearer, faintly ancient symbols. He placed the pendant and the book side by side on the table. Under the light, each object emitted a distinct aura, one warm, one cold, a contrast that hinted at powerful secrets within. Unable to sleep, Qinghan lay in bed, the strange symbols appearing whenever he closed his eyes, like living creatures beyond his grasp. More unsettling, he found his senses had sharpened, able to detect faint sounds from beyond his cabin. "Is this a blessing or a curse?" he muttered, clutching the warm pendant. The black book lay silently on the table, basking in moonlight, as if hinting at ancient secrets long sealed. Outside, the rain continued, wind howling as thunder rumbled now and then. Qinghan traced the patterns on the pendant, eyes lingering on the symbols in the black book. He knew that tonight marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Excited by the encounter yet uneasy with the unknown, he realized that the skeleton, the warm pendant, and the enigmatic book were part of a vast secret awaiting revelation, and he, Qinghan, would be the one to uncover it. As the rain faded and moonlight bathed the room, the two mysterious items glowed softly, the warm pendant and the black book, like two opposing forces, heralding the start of an extraordinary journey. Chapter 2: The Immortal in the Jade Pendant. Under the full moon, silence blanketed Qinghan's modest cabin. Lying in bed, he found it impossible to sleep after the events of the day. The image of the green glowing skeleton and the warm jade pendant lingered in his mind, stirring emotions he could barely contain. "This pendant," he murmured, sitting up to examine the jade by his bedside in the moonlight. Its gentle glow softened the room, with intricate carvings flowing like living patterns across its surface. Before he knew it, a heavy drowsiness washed over him. His body sank back into the bed as he drifted into a deep sleep. In his dream, Qinghan found himself in a hazy grey space shrouded in mist. Shadows wavered around him, shifting like faint mirages. "Fated one," a weak voice called out, breaking through the silence in intermittent bursts, as if it could fade away at any moment. Qinghan turned and glimpsed a blurry white figure in the mist. The figure's face was obscured, yet it exuded a sorrowful, compassionate aura. "Who are you?" Qinghan began. But the figure interrupted. "Time is short." The figure's voice was strained, as if struggling to maintain its form. "You must seek the path." "Seek what?" Qinghan asked, confused. "A path to immortality still exists in this world." The figure's outline faded, growing faint and ethereal, barely visible in the mist. As it spoke, a gentle warmth seeped into Qinghan's brow, leaving behind a single resonant thought: cultivation. Before he could respond, the figure dissolved like smoke. He tried to call out, but everything turned to blackness. And with a start, he woke up. Sitting up, drenched in sweat, he looked around, his heart racing. The jade pendant by his side glowed softly, casting a pale light on his slightly pale face. Cultivation, Qinghan whispered. The word had imprinted itself in his mind, stirring memories of legends about immortals who could soar through the skies. Hope and wonder rose within him, lighting a spark he hadn't felt before. Moonlight bathed the small room, as Qinghan grasped the warm pendant, recalling the dream. The white figure's faint outline left a strange familiarity, as if he had seen it somewhere before. As dawn began to break, Qinghan prepared his simple belongings. Though unsure of his destination, a deep instinct told him it was time to leave the quiet village where he had spent his 20-some years. Before departing, he cast a final glance at his small cabin, which had been his home for as long as he could remember. In the corner, the black book lay quietly, a silent witness to all that had happened. Now that I have a direction, it's time to go, he whispered, turning to face the mountain path under the morning light. The idea of an immortal path filled him with a thrill he couldn't deny. With a faint blush in the sky, a new day began. What seemed like an ordinary journey would become a crucial turning point in Qinghan's life. Chapter 3: The Entrance Test. Could this be the place? Qinghan murmured, standing before a deep mountain ravine and gazing up at the rugged peak shrouded in mist. Dimly, he could make out the outline of ancient temple buildings hidden in the fog. He had been traveling for over half a month, visiting reclusive elders and inquiring about hidden paths. Finally, a humble incense vendor had whispered of a place in the mountains that might still teach the ways of cultivation. The path was steep and treacherous, scattered with jagged stones. Qinghan climbed carefully, sweat beading on his brow, just as he was about to collapse from exhaustion. A sudden warmth emanated from the pendant he wore. He paused, feeling the warmth spread through his limbs, soothing his weariness and granting him a second wind. At last he reached a plateau. The fog parted, revealing an ancient stone gate. In front of the gate stood a middle-aged Taoist, watching him with a slight knowing smile. Is this a place of cultivation? Qinghan ventured, his voice a blend of excitement and reverence. The Taoist did not answer immediately but regarded him for a moment. Why have you come? He asked with an even tone. I wish to cultivate, Qinghan replied honestly. Cultivate? The Taoist let out a small laugh. Do you understand that the path of cultivation is filled with challenges? Many start this journey, but few succeed. Just as Qinghan was about to respond, the pendant at his chest grew hot again. A comforting warmth flowed through him, and he found himself saying, in a vast universe, there will always be those who seek. The Taoist's eyes flashed with interest. Very well, if you have come, then we shall see if you're worthy. With that, he held out a crystalline jade stone and handed it to Qinghan. Channel your spirit into this. The jade was cool to the touch, but despite his attempts to concentrate, Qinghan was unsure how to project his energy. Feeling a bit lost, he focused on the warmth of his pendant, which started to pulse gently, unseen to him. A soft stream of energy flowed from the pendant into the jade stone. After a moment, a faint blue light began to glow from within the jade. Interesting. The Taoist took back the jade, his expression unreadable. Now let us test your physical strength. Throughout the subsequent tests, whenever Qinghan began to struggle, the warmth from his pendant subtly aided him. Though his performance was unremarkable, he managed to avoid major mistakes. Your aptitude is ordinary, the Taoist said at last, but reaching this place is not an easy feat. You have shown persistence, so I shall accept you. You will begin with the most basic duties as a servant. Qinghan's eyes lit up with joy. Thank you, master, the Taoist corrected him with a wave of his hand. Call me senior brother Li, tomorrow at noon. Meet me here, and I will bring you to the sect leader." Later, in his room at a nearby inn, Qinghan lay in bed, unable to calm his excitement. He took out his pendant, only to find it had turned cold and unresponsive. "Were you helping me?" he whispered, though he received no answer. The night deepened, with moonlight flooding his room like a silver river. In his bed, Qinghan reflected on the surreal events of the day. He had finally taken his first steps on the path of cultivation, though he had no idea what lay ahead. Just as he was drifting off to sleep, he thought he heard a faint sigh echoing through his mind. When he jolted awake, the room was silent once more, and he wondered if it had all been his imagination. Chapter 4. Entering the medicine garden. Newcomer sought these herbs properly. A stern-looking young man tossed a basket of assorted herbs in front of Qinghan and turned away. Leaving him to the task, Qinghan stared at the bundle of vibrant, dew-kissed herbs, feeling unsure of where to start. As a novice servant disciple, he knew only a few types by sight and was unfamiliar with many of them. "What should I do?" he muttered, overwhelmed. Just then his pendant emanated a gentle warmth, and as he stared at the herbs, he felt as if a few of them faintly glowed before him. Brightened with newfound insight, Qinghan followed his intuition. Sorting the herbs into piles, those with a faint glow went into one group, while the others were sorted by shape and scent. "Interesting," a raspy voice sounded nearby. Startled, Qinghan turned to see an elderly man with a hunched back watching him with curiosity. Qinghan quickly bowed. He recognized the man as Uncle Zhao, the caretaker of the medicine garden, said to hold a position of some importance in the sect. "How did you sort these?" Zhao asked, pointing to the glowing herbs. Qinghan stammered, unsure how to explain. Zhao simply examined one of the herbs closely. "You've grouped the herbs rich in spiritual energy together." "How perceptive." Qinghan was astonished. So those glowing herbs were imbued with spiritual energy. "From today onward you will be in charge of managing this section of the garden," Zhao said, then turned to leave, throwing over his shoulder, "Do well." And so his day settled into a calm routine. Every morning at dawn, he rose to water, weed and tend to the garden. Though the work was demanding, Qinghan felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known before, in particular whenever he organized the spirit herbs. He found himself attuned to their subtle energy, guided by his pendant. Though faint, this awareness began deepening his understanding of cultivation. "Young man, come here." One evening, as he was about to leave, Zhao called out to him, "I collected some fresh herbs today." "Take a look," Zhao said, gesturing to several herbs on the table. Qinghan stepped forward and saw that these herbs emitted a brighter glow than the ones he typically handled. "Are these? These are top-quality spirit herbs," Zhao replied, nodding. "Since you can sense spiritual energy, I'll leave these rare herbs in your care." Overjoyed, Qinghan bowed deeply. "Thank you for entrusting me, Uncle Zhao." "No need to thank me," Zhao replied, his gaze thoughtful. "Your presence here must be due to your fate." Back in his room, Qinghan took out his pendant. Over time, he had sensed it was more than just an ordinary object. The pendant seemed to subtly influence his body, changing it in ways he couldn't yet fully understand. Whenever he worked with the spirit herbs, the pendant would respond, and he could sense his physique gradually strengthening. The faint glow within him, a trace of the pendant's essence, was gently guiding his progress. "So, that's it," he whispered, beginning to understand. Perhaps the owner of the pendant had intended for him to start from the basics, gradually building the foundation for his cultivation journey. As night deepened, moonlight streamed through his window. Qinghan traced the pendant's contours, reflecting on the events of recent days. From an unassuming hunter, he had become attuned to spiritual energy, stepping onto the path of cultivation. But little did he know, beneath this serene routine, a storm was brewing that would change everything. Chapter 5. Life in the Medicine Garden. The early morning air in the medicine garden was filled with the faint fragrance of herbs. Qinghan crouched by a bed of spirit herbs, carefully examining the growth of each plant. "This dragon whisker grass, its leaves are yellowing slightly," he murmured, gently touching a leaf. The warmth from his pendant alerted him that this herb's spiritual energy was fading. "Water it with mountain spring water," a voice sounded behind him. Qinghan turned to see Zhao Shishu, the senior overseeing the medicine garden. "Thank you, Shishu," Qinghan greeted him respectfully. "Not bad, you seem attentive," Zhao Shishu noted with a nod. "Come with me." They walked to a secluded wooden hut deep within the garden. Inside, shelves overflowed with bamboo scrolls and jars, exuding a rich medicinal aroma. "These are notes left by your seniors over the past century," Zhao Shishu said, gesturing to the rows of bamboo scrolls. "If you're committed, go ahead and study them." Qinghan's heart leapt. The accumulated wisdom of past practitioners was a priceless treasure to him. And Zhao Shishu continued, "From now on, come here every morning at Chen hour. I'll teach you more about medicinal properties." Thus Qinghan's days grew fuller. Beyond tending to the garden, he devoted time to reading ancient scrolls, learning the characteristics of various spiritual herbs. Spirit herbs are the essence of heaven and earth. One day, he was engrossed in reading a scroll when his pendant radiated an unusual warmth. Qinghan took it out, noticing a faint, ethereal glow. This glow hadn't appeared for a while now. At that moment, footsteps approached outside. Hastily putting away the pendant, he looked up to see Zhao Shishu enter. "Where are you in your reading?" the elder asked. "I'm studying the classification of spirit herbs." "Tell me about it." Qinghan recalled the text. "Spirit herbs are ranked into 9 grades. The top 3 connect heaven and earth, the middle 3 extend life, and the bottom 3 enhance physical strength." "Good," Zhao Shishu nodded approvingly. "Do you know the highest grade herb we have in this garden?" Qinghan thought about the herbs he'd seen. "The best I've come across seems to be grade 5, sharp eye." Zhao Shishu paused. "Have you ever heard of the moondew flower?" "Moondew flower?" Qinghan shook his head. "It's a grade 4 spirit herb that only blooms on full moon nights. Its bloom lasts a fleeting moment, gathering the essence of heaven and earth." A flicker of nostalgia crossed Zhao Shishu's eyes. "We had one in this garden 50 years ago. What happened to it?" "A mishap," Zhao Shishu sighed. "An accident led to its disappearance." Qinghan wanted to ask more, but noticing the elder's somber expression, he held back, sensing that there was more to the story than he should probe. "Stay here and study. I'll return shortly." Zhao Shishu left, his steps heavy and thoughtful. That night, lying in bed, Qinghan replayed the day's conversation in his mind. There was something peculiar about the way Zhao Shishu mentioned the moondew flower. It seemed to carry a hidden story. His pendant pulsed with warmth, as if resonating with his thoughts. "You sense it too, don't you?" he whispered. Over the past days, Qinghan had felt that this pendant possessed a faint sentience. Although he couldn't put it into words, he trusted his intuition. The moonlight fell softly over the medicine garden, casting silver shadows across the herbs. A gentle breeze swept through, filling the air with a sweet, lingering scent. Gradually, Qinghan drifted to sleep, unaware that he had unknowingly stepped into an ancient mystery, a mystery that was somehow intertwined with the moondew flower that had disappeared so many years ago. Chapter 6: The Outer Sect Disciples' Provocation. One quiet afternoon, Qinghan was sorting newly harvested spirit herbs when sudden, hurried footsteps broke the peace in the medicine garden. "Hey, medicine boy," a haughty voice called out. "Fetch me 10 stalks of heart grass." Qinghan looked up to see Lin Zhuren, a young outer sect disciple in blue robes, standing above him with an arrogant expression. Known for his overbearing demeanor, Lin Zhuren looked down on those he considered beneath him. "Apologies, but we ran out of heart grass 3 days ago," Qinghan replied calmly. "Ran out?" Lin Zhuren sneered. "A mere herb caretaker dares to brush me off. I see you're just making things difficult on purpose." "Senior brother Lin, the heart grass was indeed enough." Lin Zhuren cut him off, his tone sharp. I know you're getting full of yourself under Zhao Shishu's protection here in the medicine garden, but don't forget you're just a lowly servant." Qinghan said nothing, having encountered this situation before. Some outer disciples, envious of Zhao Shishu's favor toward him, often sought reasons to cause trouble. "What, cat got your tongue?" Lin Zhaoren continued with a taunting smirk. "Then again, trash without spirit roots like you are only fit to look after plants." The pendant in Qinghan's robe pulsed with warmth, as if reminding him to stay calm. "If senior brother Lin still needs calm heart grass, it will be available in 3 days, Qinghan said evenly. I'll be back then." Lin Zhaoren turned to leave but deliberately kicked over a basket of freshly sorted herbs. "Oops, slipped. Clean it up yourself." Qinghan took a deep breath and knelt down to gather the scattered herbs. The warmth from the pendant helped him retain his composure. "Letting him bully you like that, aren't you angry?" a familiar voice spoke up, unbeknownst to Qinghan. Zhao Shishu had been watching. "What's the use of getting angry?" Qinghan smiled lightly. "Better to focus my energy on cultivation." Zhao Shishu nodded approvingly. "Good, you understand. For those on the path of cultivation, heart and temperament matter most. Those who flaunt strength to belittle others will struggle to achieve greatness." "Shishu, enough, carry on with your work." Zhao Shishu turned to leave, throwing one last meaningful remark over his shoulder. "When the time is right, things will fall into place naturally." Qinghan pondered his words. These past weeks had taught him that cultivation was not only about raising his level but also about refining his character. These moments of humiliation might just be another form of test. Late that night, he continued organizing the herbs collected that day. In the moonlight, the spirit herbs emitted a faint aura that resonated with the warmth from his pendant. One day he whispered, a steely resolve flickering in his gaze. Just then, the pendant flared with intense heat, and a blurred figure appeared momentarily before him. The figure seemed to want to speak, but then vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Qinghan stood in stunned silence. Since entering the medicine garden, the mysterious spirit within the pendant hadn't shown itself again until now. The moonlight bathed the garden in quiet serenity, as if nothing had happened. But Qinghan knew something was changing, maybe sooner than he expected. Chapter 7 Soul Capture Technique. Under the shifting shadows of the moonlight, Qinghan sat cross-legged, meditating in his room. Since entering the medicine garden, he had begun to cultivate every night, following a subtle inner guidance and gradually adjusting to the faint flow of spiritual energy within him. Still so weak, he muttered, opening his eyes with a sigh. Despite gaining deeper knowledge of spirit herbs under Zhao Shishu's guidance, his cultivation level showed little tangible progress. Just then, the jade pendant at his chest heated up, and a hazy figure appeared in the moonlit room. "Fated one, do you desire strength?" The voice was still weak, but more distinct than the last time. "Senior." Qinghan's heart leapt with joy. Ever since their encounter in his dreams, this figure hadn't shown itself again. "I shall pass down a technique to you, the soul capture technique." As the figure spoke, a surge of information flooded into Qinghan's mind. A sharp pain seared through his head, and when he regained his senses, a new method of cultivation had embedded itself within his memory. This technique seemed surprisingly simple. It merely required guiding spiritual energy along a specific path. "So, this technique is quick to master." But the figure seemed about to offer a warning, but it flickered and grew faint. "Beware of." Before it could finish, the figure dissipated into the moonlight, leaving only the warmth of the pendant as proof it wasn't a mere illusion. Qinghan took a moment to absorb the newly learned technique, his surprise mounting as he realized the technique's unique energy pathway was unlike any he had seen in conventional manuals. "Let's give it a try." Taking a deep breath, he began circulating his spiritual energy according to the technique's pattern. At first, the practice felt unremarkable, but as he completed the first cycle, he suddenly felt a powerful pull within him. This force seemed to absorb spiritual energy from his surroundings, drawing it into his meridians in an unending flow. "What is this?" Qinghan opened his eyes, shocked to see the herbs around him glowing faintly, as if emitting wisps of energy that he was unknowingly absorbing. The cultivation continued for an hour, and by the time Qinghan finished, he felt his meridians brimming with lively spiritual energy. Several times more than he usually managed to accumulate. What an incredible technique, he marveled, realizing why the senior had called it a quick path to power. It was indeed far faster than conventional cultivation. Yet, just as he marveled at this new power, a strange dizziness washed over him. His mind grew hazy, and a faint darkness seemed to stir within him, giving rise to unsettling emotions. "What's happening?" He quickly stopped circulating the technique, and the ominous sensation gradually faded. The pendant warmed again. Calming his turbulent mind, Qinghan recalled how the mysterious senior had tried to warn him but hadn't had the chance to finish. Could this technique have side effects? He frowned, pondering. For now, all he could do was proceed cautiously. As the night deepened, the spirit herbs in the medicine garden returned to their quiet state. Lying in bed, Qinghan reflected on his experience. Though the origins of the soul capture technique were mysterious, it offered him a way to advance rapidly, better than staying stagnant with this thought. He drifted into a light sleep. The moonlight fell like water across his face, and unknowingly he had crossed a crucial turning point in his life. But the secrets hidden within the soul capture technique would soon reveal themselves as he delved deeper into its power, bringing unseen dangers closer with every step. Chapter 8 Task Assignment. At dawn, a shaft of sunlight broke through the morning mist, casting its light over the medicine garden. Qinghan was inspecting a newly planted patch of spirit herbs. Since beginning to cultivate the soul capture technique, he felt that his previously feeble spiritual root was gradually strengthening. Where he once barely sensed spiritual energy, he could now observe its subtle flow. He could even feel the minute absorption process of the herbs as they took in spiritual energy from the surrounding air. "It seems your comprehension in the medicine garden has improved." Zhao Shishu's voice came from behind him. Qinghan turned and greeted him. "Shishu, the sect master has arranged a task," Zhao Shishu said, his gaze steady. "There are crucial spirit herbs on Green Maple Peak that need collecting. I think you'd be a good fit for this task." Green Maple Peak. Qinghan's heart skipped a beat. It was one of the most rugged peaks in the area, perpetually veiled in mist and rich with spiritual energy, said to be home to rare valuable herbs. "Yes," Zhao Shishu nodded. "The spirit herbs there are of high quality but are difficult to locate. This time, it's up to the outer disciples to handle the gathering. I thought, given your keen perception of herbs, this would be a good opportunity for you. But my cultivation level." Qinghan hesitated. Despite his recent progress, his spiritual root was still weaker than the other disciples. Herb gathering relies more on perception than cultivation level, Zhao Shishu said with a tone of encouragement. "You've shown an increasing sensitivity to spiritual herbs during your time here. Consider this a chance to broaden your experience." Qinghan sensed the opportunity his Shishu was offering, though he couldn't shake the feeling that there was a subtle expectation in Zhao Shishu's gaze. "Be at the mountain gate tomorrow at dawn. Other outer disciples will join you." Zhao Shishu added, "Prepare yourself." After Zhao Shishu left, Qinghan took out his jade pendant. These past few days, whenever he cultivated the soul capture technique, he could feel his weak spiritual root being gradually fortified. Yet, after each session, there lingered an inexplicable feeling in his heart. As night fell, he packed a simple bundle of provisions. Tomorrow would be his first assignment outside the medicine garden. He couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Early the next morning, Qinghan arrived at the mountain gate, where a few other outer disciples were already waiting, including Lin Zharon. Since Qinghan's arrival in the medicine garden, Lin Zharon had mostly ignored him, if not outright dismissed him. "So, the herb boy is coming along?" Lin Xiaoran sneered, his tone laced with disdain. Qinghan paid him no mind and quietly stood aside. Just then, a stern-faced overseer approached them. "There are 6 of you assigned to this task," he said, unfurling a map. "Green Maple Peak is treacherous. Proceed with caution. You must return within 3 days. Do not be late." After the task briefing, the group prepared their gear. The jade pendant warmed against Qinghan's chest, seemingly offering him reassurance. "Move out." With the overseer's command, the 6 disciples filed out. Setting off towards Green Maple Peak, their silhouettes gradually faded along the misty mountain path. Qinghan didn't realize that this seemingly routine herb-gathering mission would soon lead him to a deeper understanding of the soul capture technique. The path of his cultivation had only just begun. Chapter 9 Initial Exploration of the Soul Capture Technique. The mist on Green Maple Peak was heavier than usual. Qinghan followed at the rear of the group, cautiously navigating the steep mountain paths. Over the past 2 days, they had already gathered most of the necessary spirit herbs. Qinghan's heightened sensitivity to spirit herbs had enabled him to locate rare ones with uncanny accuracy several times. The last herb is dragonbeard grass, just ahead in the gorge. The team's overseer glanced at the map and instructed, "It's a delicate herb and needs careful identification. Qinghan, go and see if you can find it." Qinghan nodded and ventured into the gorge. As he walked in, the dense fog gradually dissipated, revealing a serene valley ahead. "There it is," his eyes brightened. Under an outcropping rock, a few stalks of dragonbeard grass, glowing faintly green, swayed gently in the wind. Just as Qinghan prepared to gather them, the soul capture technique within him suddenly activated on its own. An eerie pull surged from within, drawing in the spiritual energy from the dragonbeard grass. "What's this?" Qinghan realized, stunned, that the absorbed energy was swiftly transforming within him, nourishing his originally faint spiritual root. With each intake of energy, his meridians felt warmer, and it seemed that his spiritual root was subtly transforming. The heavenly energy, once difficult for him to absorb, now felt strikingly harmonious. "So that's how it works," he murmured in realization. The soul capture technique not only absorbed free spiritual energy but could also directly draw the essence from spirit herbs. "Absorb more," a voice echoed from within his mind. Just then, his jade pendant grew warm, sending a comforting energy that suppressed that impulse. Startled, Qinghan reined in his thoughts, beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. "This power is too sinister. I'll need to use it with caution," he resolved, silently wary. After safely collecting the dragonbeard grass, he was about to return when he heard Lin Xiaoran's voice from nearby. "What are you looking at? You with your pathetic spiritual root, think you're fit to talk to me?" Qinghan turned to see Lin Xiaoran berating a fellow disciple. Noticing Qinghan's glance, Lin Xiaoran sneered, "What? You looking for trouble too?" Qinghan lowered his gaze, silently enduring the jeers. He could feel the energy stirring restlessly within him. Yet he chose to remain calm. On the journey back, every time Lin Xiaoran and his companions mocked him, the jade pendant sent waves of warmth to soothe his mind. Qinghan reminded himself that the path of cultivation was long, and he need not focus on immediate slights. Besides, he had a growing suspicion that the soul capture technique held deeper mysteries, ones he would need time to uncover. That evening, Qinghan meditated alone in his room, reflecting on the day's events. While pleased by his newfound strength, he couldn't ignore the dangerous nature of the soul capture technique. Beneath the gentle moonlight, he sensed that his path would inevitably change due to today's discovery. The way forward was uncertain, but he was ready to face it. Chapter 10 The Path of Cultivation. Upon returning to the sect, Qinghan handed the dragonbeard grass over to the steward. This trip to Green Maple Peak had given him new insights into the soul capture technique. The ability to absorb the essence of spirit herbs might be the key to breaking through the limitations of his faint spiritual root. Since I have this opportunity, I mustn't let it go to waste, he reflected late that night. Recalling the experience of accidentally absorbing the dragon beard grass's energy, he was convinced that this technique could indeed boost his spiritual strength, calming his mind. Qinghan began to practice the soul capture technique. This time, he slowed his pace deliberately, carefully feeling the method's intricate workings. As he delved deeper, he realized that this technique was far more profound than it appeared. The spiritual energy flowed through his meridians in a peculiar cycle, not merely accumulating but constantly refining, transforming into a purer force that merged with his spiritual root. So that's how it works, he murmured in realization. No wonder this technique could offer an opportunity for improvement even to someone with weak spiritual roots. The key lay in its unique method of transformation. From that day forward, Qinghan devoted himself to rigorous cultivation. Each day, after finishing his duties in the herb garden, he would focus on the soul capture technique. By day, he would experiment with small amounts of energy from ordinary spirit herbs. By night, he meditated to consolidate his gains. The jade pendant remained warm against his chest, quietly guiding him. Whenever he reached a critical point, it would emit a gentle warmth, subtly directing his practice. This elder seems to have my best interests at heart. Qinghan often mused. The pendant's guidance was always perfectly timed, keeping his progress steady yet safe. Gradually, Qinghan found his sensitivity to spiritual energy increasing. The herbs he once considered ordinary now revealed varying strengths of spiritual energy, and he could even faintly sense the ambient energy in the air. 1 month later, as he watered a newly planted herb bed, he detected a subtle flow of energy from the water seeping into the herbs, a sensation he could never have noticed before. Looks like your insights have deepened recently. Xiao Shishu's voice sounded from behind. Qinghan turned and bowed. It's all thanks to Shishu's guidance. Xiao Shishu looked over the thriving herb bed and nodded approvingly. Sensing the flow of spiritual energy means you've begun to touch the threshold of true cultivation. Keep it up, and you'll surely have further breakthroughs. After Xiao Shishu left, a glimmer of joy flashed in Qinghan's eyes. His efforts had not been in vain. He was indeed moving closer to becoming a true cultivator. That evening, under the moonlight's gentle glow, Qinghan sat in his room, beginning his nightly practice. As the soul capture technique circulated, strands of faint energy were drawn into his body, flowing through his meridians and ultimately strengthening his previously feeble spiritual root. The jade pendant emitted a faint warmth, as if quietly pleased by his progress. Qinghan knew that, though the road of cultivation was long, perseverance would ultimately lead him to his goal. In the silent night, an unremarkable outer disciple was undergoing a slow but steady transformation, and this was only the beginning. Chapter 11. Seeking opportunities at dawn. Qinghan was organizing the herb storage in the medicinal garden. His recent cultivation efforts had deepened his understanding of the spirit energy within various herbs. As he sorted the herbs, he considered how he might obtain more resources to fuel his practice. Junior brother Yi, here's a list of herbs the sect leader requested. They'll need to be collected. A managing disciple approached, handing him a slip of paper. Glancing over the list, Qinghan noted that most of the herbs were common enough. However, his gaze lingered on the final item, Qinghan grass. This herb grew deep within the mountains, where the concentration of spirit energy was significantly higher than in ordinary herbs. A plan began to take shape in his mind. Senior brother, he said, these herbs mostly grow in remote areas. Why not let me go collect them? The managing disciple hesitated. It might be difficult for you alone. I've worked in the herb garden long enough to be very familiar with these herbs, Qinghan explained. I also remember where many of these spirit herbs are located in the mountains. After a moment of contemplation, The managing disciple nodded. All right, you do know herbs better than others, but you'll need approval from Zhao Shishu. Not long after, Zhao Shishu entered the storage room, listening as Qinghan made his request. After a moment of silence, he finally nodded. Your enthusiasm is good, but remember, the mountains are dangerous. Be cautious. Once he received permission, Qinghan quickly prepared to set out. Before leaving, he checked his jade pendant. It radiated a gentle warmth as though encouraging him in his choice. Setting out from the sect, Qinghan didn't immediately go searching for the herbs on the list. Instead, he headed toward the deeper reaches of the mountains, following his plan. Along the way, he focused on sensing the fluctuations of spirit energy around him. There, his eyes lit up as he spotted a secluded valley with a few wild herbs radiating an intense spirit aura. Though they weren't on the list, the spirit energy in these naturally grown herbs far surpassed those cultivated in the herb garden. He settled into meditation and began channeling the soul capture technique. Unlike in the garden, where distractions were frequent, here he could immerse himself fully in cultivation. As the technique circulated, he absorbed the spirit energy from the surrounding herbs. The vitality of these wild herbs filled him with a sense of unprecedented fullness. Now I understand, Qinghan thought to himself. No wonder the ancients revered natural treasures. These wild spirit herbs were indeed exceptional. Following this method, Qinghan continued to search for the herbs listed on the paper, while also seeking ideal cultivation spots. Whenever he discovered an area rich in spirit energy, he would pause to practice and absorb its benefits. As night fell, Qinghan rested in a mountain cave. Taking stock of the day's gains, he realized he had found most of the listed herbs and had made significant progress in his cultivation. This is exactly what I needed, he murmured, touching the jade pendant, which felt warmer than usual, as though in approval of his decision. His heart swelled with satisfaction. It seemed he had found the right approach. Under the moonlight streaming into the cave, Qinghan resumed his practice. This time, he could clearly feel his spirit energy flowing with newfound vigor, and the spirit energy from the wild herbs was subtly transforming his body. This herb-collecting journey will continue for 3 more days. A faint smile played on his lips. With this chance, he was determined to make the most of it. The mountain wind howled, carrying the scent of herbs. Immersed in his cultivation, Qinghan lost track of time. This night, a lone cultivator pursued the path of longevity in the quiet depths of the mountains. And with this journey, a new chapter in his cultivation path had only just begun. Chapter 12, a preliminary attempt. Morning light filtered through the mist as Qinghan trekked along the mountain path. He had collected most of the herbs listed on the assignment. With only a few remaining, another bujeko, he murmured, pausing beside a clump of grass. This herb was common in the medicinal garden, but its wild counterpart was of a noticeably higher quality. He bent down to gather it but hesitated, considering his recent struggles with controlling the soul capture technique. Often, he accidentally drained herbs completely, leaving them wilted. Since this bujeko wasn't on the required list, it seemed like a suitable herb to practice on. Carefully he muttered, taking a deep breath and channeling the soul capture technique. A gentle pull extended from his core, drawing in the faint energy from the herb, but it was too much. The bujeko quickly turned yellow, wilting in his hands. A reassuring warmth radiated from his pendant, as if urging him not to give up. Qinghan nodded to himself, seeking another suitable herb for practice. This time gentler, he whispered, approaching another bujeko and focusing on minimizing the draw. The herb only wavered slightly, with its leaves turning faintly yellow, but it stayed intact this time. As he practiced repeatedly, the sun rose higher. Qinghan realized the key wasn't about the strength of the pull, but about understanding the subtle flow of energy within each herb. Every herb had unique characteristics that required individual attention. That makes sense, he mused. No wonder Zhao Shishu always stressed the importance of understanding each herb's temperament. It seemed that mastering the soul capture technique required similar care. Continuing along the path, Qinghan started paying attention to the ordinary wild grasses by the roadside, finding them ideal for his practice. Every so often, he would stop and experiment with the technique, adjusting his approach. The pendant remained warm against his chest, quietly guiding him. Slowly, he began to gather insights. Even the most ordinary plants contained a trace of spirit energy, and with the right control, he could draw from them without damage. By evening, he found shelter in a wind-sheltered cave, reviewing his day's progress. He felt content. While his progress in cultivation was small, he had finally found the right approach. Cultivation truly requires building from the basics, he murmured. Tales of absorbing monster essence or other cultivators' energy were too distant for him now. Mastering this simple technique with herbs was more than enough for the time being. Moonlight seeped through the cave entrance as Qinghan settled into his nightly practice. The day's experiences had taught him that every technique, no matter how powerful, required a solid foundation. His pendant rested warmly on his chest, and the symbols from the Black Book lay dormant in his mind. Though still a novice, Qinghan had found his path. Tomorrow he would continue his herb-gathering mission. But now he understood how to use each moment as an opportunity to hone his skills. Laying one brick at a time in his cultivation journey. Chapter 13. Facing danger in the early morning light, Qinghan examined his herb list. After days of collecting, only one herb remained: Xinlin, the violet heart orchid. Xinlin prefers shade. So it must be deeper in the mountains, he thought, recalling Elder Zhao's teachings. This rare herb thrived in damp, shadowed areas and often grew alongside poisonous plants. The mountain path became increasingly treacherous, thick with dense trees and shadowed glades. Qinghan moved cautiously, scanning his surroundings and occasionally using the soul capture technique to sense traces of spiritual energy. His recent practice had honed his sensitivity to these faint energies. There, beneath that tree, his eyes lit up. At the base of an ancient tree, small violet blossoms swayed gently, dew clinging to their petals. Just as he was about to approach, a cold surge ran through his pendant, halting him. He quickly ducked behind a large tree. Sure enough, he soon heard the soft rustling of something moving through the underbrush. A spotted viper slithered nearby, passing right by the Xinlin. Although not a spiritual beast, its venom was potent enough to be a threat even to low-level cultivators. Once the viper moved on, Qinghan exhaled, stepping forward cautiously, but as he reached for the herb, a powerful aura surged from behind, a low growl sounded, and a pitch-black leopard leapt from the shadows. This was a low-tier spiritual beast, far stronger than any ordinary predator. Without a second thought, Qinghan dodged to the side, but he was a fraction too slow. The beast's claws tore across his arm, leaving a bloody gash. Damn it! He gritted his teeth, trying to scramble away, but the leopard was already preparing to strike again. Just as the creature lunged, a flash of silver sliced through the air. The leopard let out a shriek and retreated, eyeing the newcomer warily. "Be careful, junior brother," a clear voice called out. Floating in mid-air, clad in blue robes, was a female disciple wielding a gleaming silver sword. Senior Sister Liu, a fellow disciple. Sensing her strength, the leopard growled lowly before disappearing into the thick forest. "Thank you for saving me, Senior Sister," Qinghan said, bowing in gratitude. "You're from the medicinal garden, aren't you?" Senior Sister Liu asked, sheathing her sword. "It's dangerous to be this deep in the forest. You should be more careful." Qinghan nodded, explaining the last herb, Xinlin, could only be found here. Senior Sister Liu looked at his injured arm and said, "It's a minor wound, but venturing out here alone is risky. Let me help you back." "But Xinlin," Qinghan glanced back at the herb, unwilling to leave empty-handed. "It's just there. With a light step, Senior Sister Liu approached the old tree and effortlessly collected the delicate herb. Watching her, Qinghan felt a mix of gratitude and frustration. If he were only a bit stronger, he wouldn't have been so helpless against even a low-tier spiritual beast. The pendant's warmth pulsed faintly, offering a sense of comfort. It reminded him that he still had a long way to go and that he needed to focus on building a solid foundation. On their way back, Senior Sister Liu warned him about recent spiritual beast activity in the area, urging him to be cautious in future foraging trips. Qinghan nodded earnestly, determined to remember the lesson from today's encounter. As night fell, he finally returned to his quarters. Checking the herbs he had gathered over the past few days, he felt relief at having completed his assignment. Even if the last one had been thanks to Senior Sister Liu's assistance. Lying in bed, he replayed the day's events in his mind. His pendant rested warmly against his chest, and the dormant symbols from the Black Book lingered in his thoughts. He knew he was still a long way from true mastery, but at least he had taken his first steps. Chapter 14. The blood-colored fragment. Morning mist shrouded the herb garden, casting a damp hush over the plants. Qinghan crouched among the scattered herbs, carefully inspecting each patch. These Qinghan grass seem unharmed. He gently brushed the leaves and, using the soul capture technique, sensed the faint spiritual energy flowing within them. At least their vitality is intact. As he was about to stand, a glint of unusual red caught his eye, in the corner of the garden, partially hidden within a cluster of weeds. "They a blood-colored fragment. What's this?" he murmured, moving closer to investigate. A strong, peculiar scent wafted toward him, rich and sharp with an inexplicable note that left him slightly dizzy. Just as he extended his hand toward the fragment, his pendant pulsed with a warning heat, as if to caution him. Before he could pick it up, mocking laughter sounded behind him. Well, isn't this our lowly herb boy?" Lin Zharon strolled over with a group of fellow disciples, a smug smile on his face. "I heard you made a fool of yourself at Qinghan Ridge yesterday." Qinghan straightened, replying calmly, "Senior Brother Lin, please don't exaggerate." "Exaggerate?" Lin Zharon sneered. "A mere mountain leopard had you so scared you needed Senior Sister Liu to step in. Don't you feel ashamed, calling yourself a man, right?" A lanky disciple beside Lin chimed in. "If Senior Sister hadn't saved you, the garden would have been planting your memorial by now." Their laughter echoed as Qinghan clenched his fists, restraining his anger. The warm pulse from his pendant helped him calm down. "You're right, Senior Brothers, I am low in cultivation. Thank you for the reminder," he said with a slight bow. "Glad you understand your place," Lin scoffed. "You're nothing but a useless herb boy, unable to even sense the aura of a spirit herb properly." Just then, Elder Zhao's voice called out from a distance, "What's everyone doing here?" Lin Zhaoren and his group immediately straightened, bowing respectfully, their arrogant expressions vanishing. "Elder Zhao, we were just coming to ask for your guidance on some matters." Elder Zhao looked from Qinghan to the other disciples, his expression neutral. "Very well, follow me then." Once they had gone, Qinghan let out a breath, grateful for the reprieve. Glancing around to ensure he was alone, he quickly picked up the blood-colored fragment and tucked it away. The fragment was cold to the touch, radiating an unsettling energy. Even more curious was the reaction from his pendant, which now felt uncharacteristically cool, as though it were rejecting the fragment. As night fell, Qinghan sat in his room, carefully examining the strange shard. Under the candlelight, it emitted an eerie, almost mesmerizing glow, and that strange medicinal scent was even stronger. "This seems to be part of a pill, but why would it be in the garden?" he wondered aloud, just as he prepared to probe it with the soul capture technique. His pendant flared up, becoming almost painfully hot. Startled, he quickly withdrew his hand. The pendant's unusual reaction hinted at something ominous about this blood-red fragment. Could it be? He considered the implications, then tucked the shard away. Respecting the pendant's silent warning, lying in bed, Qinghan turned the day's events over in his mind. The taunts from Lin Xiaoran had only fueled his resolve to grow stronger, yet the discovery of the mysterious pill fragment left him with a sense of foreboding. Under the silvery moonlight, the herb garden lay quiet, its familiar scents mingling with a faint hint of blood. Clutching his warm pendant, Qinghan lay wide awake, sensing that he had stumbled upon a secret far beyond his current abilities to comprehend. For now, he could only harbor his doubts and wait. Chapter 15 Hidden Schemes. Morning whispers spread through the herb garden like wildfire. Did you hear? Senior brother Wang Hu was found dead last night. The shocking news froze Qinghan mid-task, his hand momentarily still over a bundle of herbs. Wang Hu, always cheerful and full of life, suddenly gone. Clear out Wang Hu's quarters immediately, commanded a senior official outside. As a lower-ranked disciple, such menial tasks naturally fell to Qinghan. Wang Hu's quarters were located in a secluded corner of the outer disciples' area. As Qinghan entered, a pungent metallic scent of blood hit him, sharp and suffocating. Blackened stains dotted the floor, evidence of a violent end. I heard senior brother Wang died bleeding from his eyes, ears and nose, whispered Shoyun, a quiet girl with a keen eye. Helping him clean up. While scrubbing, Qinghan's gaze fell to something peculiar, a blood-red fragment wedged in a crevice under the bed. It looked almost identical to the one he'd found in the herb garden. Shoyun, he said in a low voice, have you noticed anything unusual lately? She glanced around nervously before replying in a whisper, I've seen some outer disciples sneaking around late at night. Didn't think much of it before, but now do you know where they go? They seem to head deeper into the herb garden, she answered, frowning. Qinghan, you don't think? Before she could finish, footsteps echoed outside. They quickly resumed cleaning as Lin Xiaoran strode in with a few disciples. Almost done here. Lin Xiaoran's gaze swept the room, lingering on Qinghan momentarily. Burn what needs burning. And keep your mouths shut about anything you've seen. Yes, senior brother, Qinghan and Shoyun replied in unison. When Lin Xiaoran and his group left, Shoyun let out a sigh of relief. Qinghan, something about this isn't right. Qinghan nodded, replying, I'm on night watch at the herb garden tonight. Would you? I'm coming with you, she said firmly, not waiting for him to finish. I haven't been able to sleep lately anyway. As night fell, clouds veiled the moon, casting deep shadows across the herb garden. Qinghan and Shoyun took up watch, each hidden in a corner, quietly observing. Round midnight, several figures moved furtively towards the inner reaches of the garden. In the dim light, Qinghan recognized one of them as Lin Xiaoran. Is this really that powerful? A hushed voice asked, trembling with excitement and fear. Quiet, Lin Xiaoran whispered sharply. This is a rare opportunity. 3 days with it is like 10 years of cultivation. But Wang Hu, that fool, just couldn't handle it. Lin Xiaoran sneered. This path is paved with corpses. Do you want to stay as an outer disciple forever? Watching others ascend, hidden in the shadows, Qinghan's heartbeat quickened. His pendant grew hot against his chest, as if trying to warn him of something. Qinghan, Shoyun whispered from her hiding spot. Look over there. Following her gaze, he saw a faint blood-red glow emanating from deep within the garden, accompanied by a nauseating scent. The aura was identical to the one he'd felt when he found the fragments. We should. Shoyun's grip on his sleeve was tense with fear. Let's leave for now, Qinghan whispered back, deciding it was too dangerous to intervene. We need a plan. Back at his quarters, Qinghan examined the fragment under the moonlight. Its ominous red sheen glinted in the dim light, the sharp medicinal scent stronger than before. His pendant pulsed with cold, an unusual response as though repelling the fragment. Qinghan's mind raced. Clearly there was something sinister at play, and this blood-stained shard was a part of it. Yet with his limited power, any direct interference could easily lead to his own demise. I'll have to accelerate my training, he muttered. Feeling an urgency he couldn't ignore, he had a strong sense that this mystery would soon involve him. whether he wanted it to or not. Outside, the dark clouds began to drift away, and moonlight spilled over the silent herb garden. Under this calm night, a storm was brewing, and Qinghan could feel its approach. Clutching his warm pendant, he lay awake, knowing he was standing on the edge of a treacherous path, one that might reveal terrifying secrets hidden within the sect. Chapter 16. A narrow escape. The silent depths of the herb garden lay cloaked in midnight stillness. Qinghan patrolled the pathways as usual, though his mind lingered on the blood-red shard he had found. Qinghan, Xiaoyun's voice broke through the darkness as she hurried over. I think I discovered something. Lower your voice, Qinghan cautioned. What is it? While cleaning up earlier, I overheard Lin Xiaoran saying there'd be a big operation tonight. Xiaoyun whispered, it's supposed to happen near the abandoned medicine cellar on the back mountain. Qinghan's mind raced. That abandoned cellar was a forgotten spot, rarely visited. The secrecy of it made it an ideal location for clandestine activities. Head back, I'll keep an eye on things here, he decided quickly, giving Xiaoyun a reassuring nod, but Xiaoyun hesitated, worried. Trust me, it's too dangerous for you to get involved. After sending her away, Qinghan moved cautiously toward the back mountain. A cold breeze swept through, carrying the usual herbaceous fragrance mixed with a faint, disturbing hint of blood. His pendant suddenly radiated an intense warning, the temperature dropping abruptly. Heart pounding, Qinghan hid behind a large tree just in time. Brother Zhang, are you really going to try that stuff? Someone's nervous voice sounded nearby. Why not? Came a rough voice. Didn't senior brother Lin say it could help us break through? No risk, no gain. But Wang Hu, shut up. Lin Xiaoran's voice cut through sharply. Enough hesitating. Brother Zhang here in the dim moonlight. Qinghan could see Lin Xiaoran handing Brother Zhang a blood-red pill. The pill glowed with an eerie radiance, matching the fragments he'd found earlier. Without a second thought, Brother Zhang swallowed the pill. Boom! An immense wave of spiritual energy surged outward as Zhang's cultivation level skyrocketed within moments, his strength approaching the upper limits of the outer disciples. Ha ha ha! Zhang laughed maniacally. Intoxicated with his newfound power, this is incredible. But his laughter ceased as suddenly as it had begun. Fuffed, Zhang coughed up blood, his body convulsing violently as his skin flushed an alarming red, as if burning from within. Not again, Lin Xiaoran's face twisted with fear. Hold him down, quick. But Zhang, now consumed by the pill's violent energy, had lost all reason. With a crazed expression he lashed out, knocking two disciples back with terrifying force. A tortured scream escaped as blood poured from Zhang's eyes, nose, and mouth. It's too hot, I'm burning up. Qinghan, hidden nearby, watched with growing horror. His pendant pulsed colder and colder, urging him to flee from the danger unfolding before him. A sudden gust of wind carried the scent of herbs, brushing against Qinghan's hiding spot. Zhang sniffed the air like a wild beast and turned sharply in his direction. Someone's there, Lin Xiaoran shouted, his voice dripping with malice. Catch him! Qinghan's heart seized as he spun and ran, but Zhang was upon him in an instant, his bloodshot eyes filled with rage. At that moment, Qinghan's pendant burst forth with a surge of energy. A flash of green light forced Zhang back momentarily, giving Qinghan the chance to escape. But he quickly realized Lin Xiaoran's group had encircled him. So it was you, Lin Xiaoran sneered as he approached, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. I had a feeling something was off in the herb garden lately. Now I know who's been snooping around. Senior brother Lin, no need to explain, Lin Xiaoran interrupted coldly. You've seen too much, don't blame me for what happens next. As he signaled his men to attack, Zhang's agonized scream pierced the air again, and he fell to his knees, blood streaming from his face as he writhed in uncontrollable pain. The pill's terrible power had fully consumed him. Get help, Lin Xiaoran shouted desperately. He's losing control. In the ensuing chaos, Qinghan seized his chance and dashed down the nearest path. Behind him, Lin Sharon's furious shout echoed through the garden. "Don't let him escape!" The warmth of his pendant steadied as he ran, a silent reassurance that he was temporarily safe. But Yi Qinghan knew he was far from out of danger. He had uncovered a secret Lin Sharon and his followers would go to any lengths to keep buried, and the terrifying power of those pills, they were clearly no ordinary medicine. Under the cold moonlight, Yi Qinghan's shadow flitted through the garden. This night had irreversibly altered his fate, thrusting him into a treacherous web of mystery and danger. In his chest, the pendant pulsed with a warmth that was almost protective, yet he could sense with chilling clarity that his life would never be the same again. Chapter 17. Seeking hidden help. Long before dawn, Yi Qinghan quietly slipped back to his quarters. The events of last night haunted him. The ghastly sight of Brother Zhang's collapse and Lin Sharon's menacing gaze made his skin crawl. "I need an ally." He brushed his fingers over the warm pendant, his mind racing for solutions. His current strength was nowhere near enough to confront Lin Sharon's schemes. By morning, Yi Qinghan was back in the herb garden, working as usual. In the distance, he noticed several overseers speaking in hushed tones. "Another one gone. That's the second this month. The sect leader has already assigned people to investigate." Yi Qinghan kept his head down, pretending to tend to the herbs as he strained to listen. Just then, a hand clasped his shoulder. "Brother Yi." It was Xiaoyun, looking pale and distressed. Last night quiet. Yi Qinghan quickly pulled her to a secluded spot under the thatched roof of the garden hut. "You mustn't speak of last night to anyone." Xiaoyun nodded anxiously. "I heard that Brother Zhang died too, just like Brother Wang." "Brother Yi, shouldn't we tell Elder Zhao about this?" Yi Qinghan shook his head. "Not yet. If Lin Sharon and his group are bold enough to act in secret within the sect, then they must have someone powerful backing them. Reporting this now might alert them." "Then what should we do?" Xiaoyun's voice trembled as she fought back tears. "What if they—" "Don't worry," Yi Qinghan offered her a reassuring smile, though he himself felt far from calm. "I have a plan." Just then, Elder Zhao's voice called from outside. "Xiaoyun, take the morning's ginseng harvest to the pill room." "Yes, Elder." Xiaoyun glanced back at Yi Qinghan worriedly before leaving. Moments later, Elder Zhao strolled into the garden, his steps unhurried. "Having some trouble?" Yi Qinghan was taken aback and managed a weak smile. "Nothing escapes your notice, Elder. Out with it." Elder Zhao prompted, taking a seat nearby. "You've been distracted since dawn." Yi Qinghan hesitated, then decided to probe carefully. "Elder, have you ever heard of a pill that can provide 10 years' worth of cultivation progress in just 3 days? Elder Zhao's face immediately darkened. "Where did you hear of such a thing?" Yi Qinghan paused as the pendant in his hand grew warmer. Calming him, "I saw someone take it myself," and after, he recounted the events of the previous night, omitting a few details. Elder Zhao's face grew more serious as he listened. "It's as I feared." Elder Zhao sighed. "Those fools are dabbling with something they don't understand." "Elder, do you know what that pill is?" "It's called the blood demon pill," Elder Zhao replied, voice low. "A forbidden substance that can rapidly increase power but at a terrible cost." Elder Zhao didn't elaborate, but Yi Qinghan understood enough. Brother Wang and Brother Zhang's fates were proof enough of the price one paid. "Don't take any rash actions." Elder Zhao stood, his gaze steely. "I'll look into this matter, but until then, you must be cautious. Now that they know you're aware, they won't hesitate to silence you." Yi Qinghan nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Elder." "Oh," and Elder Zhao paused at the doorway, glancing back. "Stay away from the inner herb beds for the time being. I'll arrange it as if you've been reassigned." Yi Qinghan's heart lifted slightly. Elder Zhao was subtly providing him with a cover. As night fell, Yi Qinghan was deep in thought, piecing together everything he'd learned. For Lin Sharon and his group to act so brazenly, there must be someone powerful supporting them. But who? As he was preparing to head back to his quarters, he saw Xiaoyun hurrying over, her face flushed. "Brother Yi," she panted. "I overheard Lin Sharon and his friends talking. They plan to act tonight." Take a breath and tell me clearly. Yi Qingyan steadied her. They plan to kill you tonight, Xiaoyun exclaimed, her voice shaking. They said you know too much and can't be allowed to live. Yi Qinghan clenched the pendant in his hand, a sense of resignation washing over him. It seemed he couldn't avoid this reckoning. Under the moon's silvery glow, the herb garden lay quiet and serene. But Yi Qinghan knew that tonight, the calm would be shattered. He wasn't alone in this. Elder Zhao's subtle support and Xiaoyun's loyalty gave him a glimmer of hope. Now he had to navigate the looming danger with everything he had. This night was destined to be anything but peaceful. Chapter 18 Night Attack. Under the heavy moonlight, the medicinal herbs in the garden swayed gently with the wind. Yi Qinghan hadn't returned to his own quarters, but instead hid in the room where Uncle Zhao usually concocted pills. They'll definitely go to my room first. Yi Qingyan whispered to Xiaoyun. You'd better go back now, so they don't find you. Xiaoyun shook her head. I won't leave. What if something happens to you? Bang! A loud thud suddenly echoed from afar. It sounded like someone had kicked open his door. Where is he? Lin Xiaoran's angry voice faintly reached them. Spread out and search, another voice ordered. The kid wouldn't have run far, right? Run, Lin Xiaoran sneered. The entire garden is filled with our people. Where could he possibly escape to? The footsteps drew nearer and nearer. Yi Qinghan and Xiaoyun hid behind a large cabinet filled with herbs, barely daring to breathe. The jade pendant on Yi Qinghan's chest radiated warmth, as if it were warning him of the approaching danger. Did you find him? Came hushed whispers outside. No. It seems like there's no one here. Wait, a sinister voice interrupted. Do you smell something? Yi Qinghan's heart pounded. He realized that the herbal scent from his earlier gathering was still on him. This scent would surely be especially noticeable to those who had consumed the blood demon pill. He's inside. Before the voice had even finished speaking, someone kicked open the door to the side room. Come out, Yi Qinghan. Lin Xiaoran stood at the doorway, flanked by 5 or 6 other outer disciples. We know you're here. Yi Qinghan squeezed Xiaoyun's hand, signaling her to remain silent, and slowly stood up. Senior brother Lin, there's no need for such a fuss, he said, feigning calmness. You know too much, Lin Xiaoran sneered as he stepped closer. I thought I'd give you a quick death, but since you're hiding like a rat. Don't blame us for being ruthless. Aren't you afraid this will be exposed? Yi Qinghan said, stepping back subtly. Exposed? Lin Xiaoran laughed. Once we use the blood demon pill to become core disciples, who will dare challenge us? Besides, he gazed at Yi Qinghan coldly. Dead men tell no tales. Get him. At Lin Xiaoran's command, the outer disciples advanced. Despite his recent progress, Yi Qinghan still struggled against such overwhelming odds. Bang! A palm struck his chest, sending him stumbling back into a cabinet, spilling herbs with a dull thud. That's all you've got, Lin Xiaoran taunted. No wonder you're just a herb-tending nobody. Yi Qinghan forced himself to stand, and the jade pendant on his chest suddenly flared with intense warmth. At that moment, he noticed several clusters of Jueyang grass scattered on the floor, an extremely flammable herb. Did you really think I came unprepared? He suddenly smirked, forming a seal with his hand. A tiny flame ignited the Jueyang grass on the ground. Watch out, someone shouted. The Jueyang grass released a strong pungent smoke as it burned, a common knowledge among those working in the medicinal garden. Thick smoke quickly filled the room. Taking advantage of the moment, Yi Qinghan grabbed Xiaoyun's hand and darted out. Cough, don't let him get away. Lin Xiaoran's angry curses echoed from behind. Under the moonlight, Yi Qinghan and Xiaoyun hurried through the garden. The smoke delayed their pursuers, but soon enough, the footsteps of their hunters sounded behind them. Brother Yi, this way, Xiaoyun whispered urgently, pulling him onto a narrow path she had found while collecting weeds. The path led directly to Uncle Zhao's quarters. Think you can run? A chilling voice suddenly sounded from ahead. A disciple with a vicious expression blocked the path, his eyes glowing eerily red, the unmistakable sign of someone who had consumed the blood demon pill. Xiaoyun, you go. Yi Qinghan pushed her aside. The jade pendant flared with heat, warning him of the impending danger. "But go find Uncle Zhao," he ordered in a low voice. Xiaoyun bit her lip, then turned and fled. The disciple sneered. "You think you can stop me?" He swung his hand, aiming a fierce palm strike at Qinghan. Qinghan managed to dodge, but the force of the strike still pushed him back several steps. The jade pendant grew hot against his chest, heightening his sense of the dire situation. "Accept your fate." Lin Zhaoran had caught up, a sinister smile on his face. "A useless low-spirit root like you was doomed from the start." Qinghan's eyes darted around, taking in the disciples gradually encircling him. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. He knew he was no match for them. His only hope was to hold out until Uncle Zhao arrived. The pendant's warmth slowly cooled, as if sharing in his anxiety, but Qinghan knew he had no other choice. He would have to fight. "Get him," Lin Zhaoran ordered, and the disciples attacked in unison. Qinghan fought back, retreating step by step, but he quickly took several blows. Under the moonlight, this one-sided battle seemed already decided. His only chance lay in Xiaoyun reaching Uncle Zhao in time. Just then, thick clouds drifted over the moon, casting the garden into even deeper darkness. Chapter 19. A narrow escape. The heavy night shrouded the medicinal garden, and Qinghan found himself cornered. His chest throbbed painfully. Those few blows had been harsh, and if not for his regular exposure to spiritual herbs strengthening his body, he would have been down already. "Struggling to your death," Lin Zhaoran sneered as he approached, his eyes gleaming with a cruel light under the moon. "I'd like to see how much longer you can last." Qinghan leaned against the wall, panting, feeling the jade pendant grow colder and colder, a sensation he had never felt before. Was he truly going to die here tonight? "Hurry up and finish him off," urged one of the disciples who had taken the blood demon pill. "The longer we wait, the more chance of trouble." "What's the rush?" Lin Zhaoran waved dismissively. "Let him live a little longer. I still have some questions." He leaned over Qinghan, looking down at him. "So tell me, what exactly did you see that night?" Qinghan remained silent, his eyes darting around as he cautiously observed his surroundings. He was stalling, hoping that Xiaoyun would bring Uncle Zhao in time. If he could just hold out a bit longer. No answer. Lin Zhaoran slammed a hand down on Qinghan's shoulder. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Qinghan grunted in pain, blood pooling in his mouth. He forced himself to keep it down and said hoarsely, "Senior brother Lin, did you really investigate the origins of the blood demon pill?" Lin Zhaoran's expression wavered slightly. "What do you mean?" "Wenghu and brother Shang's fates were right in front of you," Qinghan said, coughing twice. "Is this pill really worth risking everything?" "Shut up," Lin Zhaoran snapped. "You don't understand a thing. They were just too weak to handle the pill's power." Before he could finish, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from a distance. "It's Uncle Zhao," someone exclaimed in alarm. Lin Zhaoran's expression changed abruptly. "Quick, finish him." Several disciples attacked at once. Qinghan was too exhausted to dodge, and the lethal blows were inches away when a stern, powerful voice echoed through the night. "Stop!" Uncle Zhao's figure appeared in the moonlight, his overwhelming presence enveloping the entire garden. Lin Zhaoran and his cohorts froze, not daring to move. "Uncle Zhao," Lin Zhaoran forced a calm tone. "This is all just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Uncle Zhao laughed coldly. "Did you think the blood demon pill would remain a secret forever?" Lin Zhaoran's face turned pale. You knew?" "Not just me." Uncle Zhao looked around. "The sect has been investigating this matter for a while. Tonight, I'll handle it myself and clean out our ranks." As he spoke, several figures appeared from the darkness, disciplinary enforcers of the sect. Realizing the dire situation, Lin Zhaoran and the others attempted to flee, trying to run. Uncle Zhao scoffed. "Not one of you will escape tonight." Leaning against the wall, Qinghan observed the sudden turn of events. The temperature of the jade pendant slowly returned to normal, indicating that the crisis had passed. Take this, Uncle Zhao approached, handing him a pill. It'll help with the injuries. The sounds of battle rang from a distance as the enforcers cornered Lin Xiaoran and the others. Swallowing the pill, Qinghan felt a warm energy spreading through his body. Easing the pain, Uncle Zhao, he hesitated, then asked, "Did you know about the blood demon pill all along?" Uncle Zhao sighed. "Yes, but we were trying to find the mastermind. These young ones were too greedy, manipulated without even realizing it." And Xiaoyan Qinghan remembered sending her to notify Uncle Zhao. She was quick to understand the urgency, found me, and alerted the enforcers. Uncle Zhao replied, "She's safe and in a secure place now." Suddenly a sharp whistle pierced the night, followed by chaotic sounds of struggle. Uncle Zhao's face darkened. They are trying to escape. Uncle Zhao Qingyan attempted to stand. "Stay here and rest." Uncle Zhao's tone was firm. "This is far more complicated than you think. The origins of the blood demon pill, they may involve some deep secrets within the sect." With that, Uncle Zhao disappeared into the night. Qinghan leaned back against the wall, listening to the distant clashes, his mind awash with questions. The jade pendant lay quietly against his chest, its warmth restored. But Qinghan knew that tonight's ordeal was far from over. What hidden truths lay behind those disciples who had taken the blood demon pill? The moonlight shone over the disarrayed medicinal garden. This tumultuous night might only be the beginning of an even greater storm. Chapter 20. Undercurrents stirring. Dawn was breaking, and the medicinal garden had finally returned to its quiet state. Qinghan sat in the side chamber, watching as sect enforcers busily tended to the remnants of the previous night's battle. "Junior brother Yi, the sect master wants to see you," one of the enforcers said as he entered. Qinghan's heart tightened, but he nodded, understood. When he arrived at the meeting hall, he found the sect master in discussion with a few elders, speaking in low tones. Upon seeing him, the sect master raised his head, his calm face betraying no emotion. "Come in." Disciple Qinghan greets the sect master and the elders. Qinghan respectfully bowed. "Uncle Zhao has already told us what happened," the sect master said slowly. "You handled it well, avoiding rash actions." Qinghan kept his head down, not daring to speak. One elder with a dark expression asked suddenly, "At what point did you first suspect the blood demon pill?" Reporting to the elder, it was after senior brother Wang Hu's death. Qinghan explained everything he'd observed, from the red shards to other discoveries, omitting only the jade pendant. The sect master nodded thoughtfully. "Did Lin Xiaoran and his followers mention the source of the blood demon pill?" Qinghan shook his head. Disciple only heard them say that it could boost one's cultivation by a decade in 3 days. "But as for its exact origin, I don't know." "A decade in 3 days," another elder scoffed. "Those fools dared to dabble in such wicked paths." "Sect master, this must be dealt with severely." "It will be," the sect master sighed. "But it's likely the blood demon pill's origins are more complicated. Whoever brought it into the sect likely has deep connections." He trailed off, then addressed Qinghan again. "Since you're already involved in this matter, you'll need to be careful. For now, avoid leaving the medicinal garden. Uncle Zhao will ensure your safety." "Yes, sect master, I understand." Relieved, Qinghan left the hall, only to find Xiaoyan waiting for him by the corridor. "Senior brother Yi," she rushed forward. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." He smiled. "Thanks to you for last night." Xiaoyan shook her head. "I just ran quickly." "Oh," she lowered her voice. "Do you know, they imprisoned Lin Xiaoran and the others in the dungeon." But what?" "2 of them escaped," she whispered, glancing around. "I overheard the enforcers saying they scaled the back mountain. It seems someone was helping them." A thought struck Qinghan. Help from outside. It appeared the sect master was right. The matter wasn't simple at all. Back at the medicinal garden, Uncle Zhao was inventorying damaged herbs. He waved Qinghan over when he arrived. "Come here and check if the heating for these is just right." Qinghan took a look. Uncle Zhao was refining a batch of nourishing pills, typically used to aid disciples' recovery. "The timing is perfect." he said after inspecting the herbal fragrance, though the gentian root seems a little correct. Uncle Zhao nodded approvingly. It seems you've deepened your understanding of medicinal properties. Here, help me distribute these. As he sorted the pills, Qinghan couldn't help but ask Uncle Zhao about the blood demon pills. Let's not discuss that for now, Uncle Zhao interrupted. What you should focus on is continuing to improve yourself. Troubling times are on the horizon, and only strength will keep you safe. Qinghan paused. Troubling times. Uncle Zhao didn't elaborate, instead handing him a jade vial. Keep these pills with you. They'll help in case of danger. The jade pendant pulsed with warmth, as if agreeing with Uncle Zhao's words. Qinghan felt a sense of foreboding. Everything that had happened recently hinted at an impending upheaval. Oh, Uncle Zhao added suddenly, I heard you've made some progress in your cultivation. Qinghan tensed slightly. Yes, I've had some insights recently. Uncle Zhao gave him a meaningful look. The path of cultivation requires a firm foundation. Some shortcuts may look tempting but are dangerous. Remember that. Qinghan nodded silently. He understood that Uncle Zhao was subtly warning him against following in Lin Zhaoran's footsteps. Night fell, casting the medicinal garden in silence. Lying on his bed, Qinghan reflected on the day's events, the source of the blood demon pill, the mysterious accomplices, the sect master's caution, Uncle Zhao's warning, all pointed to a storm brewing behind the scenes. The jade pendant warmed against his chest, giving him a sense of reassurance, yet he knew that this comfort might be fleeting, as Uncle Zhao said. Only by growing stronger could he truly protect himself. In the depths of the medicinal garden, unknown herbs swayed gently in the night breeze, as if whispering secrets of a hidden world.